The horse came
Please help my
first,
kids. It's getting
lathered,
dangerous.
stumbling. Then the woman collapsed 30 yards from his door, children
Please
screaming.
have my kids.
Caleb
It's
Smithson
getting
hadn't helped
dangerous.
anyone in 4 years. Not since he froze and watched his
Please have
fiancée
my
die.
kids. It's getting
But that
dangerous.
desperate cry shattered everything. Please, I have children. Can you help?
Hello everyone! Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video and share with loved ones, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin.
The knock never came. Just the horse's whinny, nervous and exhausted, cutting through the Wyoming darkness like a blade. Caleb Smithson was awake before his mind fully registered the sound, Colt already in his hand. Nobody came to the line shack. That was the whole point of living 20 miles from Cheyenne in the middle of nowhere. He moved to the window, keeping low. August moonlight revealed them, a woman on foot, leading a lathered horse. 2 children sharing the saddle, and something small wrapped in her arms. The woman stopped 30 yards out and swayed. "I know you're in there," she called, voice cracked and desperate. "I'm not armed. I just need help." Caleb's fingers stayed on the trigger. Every instinct screamed trap. "Please." The word shattered. "I have children." Through the window, he saw them clearly now. A girl, maybe 10, holding a younger boy. The woman clutching an infant. All of them skeletal, hollow-eyed, barefoot. The woman collapsed. The girl screamed. The boy scrambled down, running to his mother. The infant started crying, thin, desperate wailing that cut straight through Caleb's chest. He stood frozen, remembering another woman. Another moment when someone needed him and he couldn't move. Rebecca, reaching for him, blood spreading across blue fabric. His feet rooted to the ground while bullets flew. Damn it! He shoved the Colt in his belt and opened the door. The woman was face down in the dirt. The girl knelt beside her, shaking her. The boy stood guard, fists clenched despite barely reaching Caleb's waist. The baby sat crying in the dust. "Your mama alive?" Caleb asked. The girl looked up, eyes fierce with terror. "Don't you touch her. Wasn't planning on it. But if she's breathing, we need to get her inside." He checked the woman's pulse. Freddie but there. When he lifted her, she weighed nothing. Bones wrapped in dusty calico. "You kids got names?" "Clara. That's Daniel. The baby's Ruth." "Well, Clara, Daniel, Ruth. I am Caleb Smithson. And I'm guessing you folks are in a heap of trouble." Clara picked up her sister, following him inside. "Mister, you don't know the half of it." 3 days passed like a slow thaw. The children didn't speak much at first. They ate the food Caleb put in front of them, his entire month's rations gone in 48 hours, and watched him with wary, calculating eyes. Clara especially. She positioned herself between Caleb and her siblings like a guard dog, ready to bite. Jenny Rochelle recovered slowly. The first day, she barely moved. The second, she tried to work, collapsing after 10 minutes. By the third, she was cleaning his shack with ruthless efficiency despite Caleb's protests. "I can't just take," she said, scrubbing his table until the wood gleamed. "I have to earn our keep. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything." The words hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to examine. Daniel started following Caleb during chores, silent but curious. When Caleb showed him how to stack firewood, the boy's face lit up like Christmas morning. Ruth, the toddler, took longer to warm up. But on the third evening, she climbed into Caleb's lap without asking and fell asleep against his chest. Caleb froze, hands hovering uselessly. Finally, he wrapped one arm around her. She was so light. Jenny watched from across the room, something unreadable in her gray-green eyes. That night, neither could sleep. Caleb sat by the stove, listening to Jenny's restless movements on the cot he'd surrendered to her. Finally, she spoke into the darkness. "My husband was Frank Rochelle, the outlaw." Caleb had guessed. "Heard he died 2 weeks ago, shot during a train robbery near Laramie." Her voice was flat, rehearsed. "Before he died, he talked. Told the law where the gang's hideout was. Now the survivors want revenge. They want me and my children dead. And the law won't help. The marshal called me outlaw trash and shut the door in my face." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Where were you headed?" "Denver. My sister's there." Jenny paused. "I have land near Fort Collins." A deed Frank put in my name before he turned bad. It's yours if you'll just get my children to safety. I'll go back, face the gang, give you time. No, Mr. Smithson, we go together. All of us. Or nobody goes at all. They left before dawn. 5 shadows moving through Wyoming grassland turned silver by moonlight. Caleb led the pack horse. Ginny walked beside him, and the children rode, Clara holding Ruth, Daniel clinging to the saddle horn with white-knuckled determination. They traveled by night, hid by day in abandoned homesteads and ravines. Ate cold food, spoke in whispers. The children adapted with unsettling ease. Clara organized their meager supplies like a seasoned campaigner. Daniel learned to muffle the horse's bridle with rags so it wouldn't jingle. Even Ruth understood when silence meant survival. 5 days south, they reached the South Platte River. Caleb stared at the swollen current, jaw tight. The only bridge was in Greeley, 10 miles west, straight through Kettering gang territory. We ford here, he said. Ginny's face went pale. I can't swim. Then hold on tight. The crossing started well. Water reached the horse's belly, cold and fast, but manageable. Halfway across, the current strengthened. The horse stumbled, scrambling for footing on slick river stones. Daniel's grip slipped. He went under with a small, terrified cry. Ginny lunged for him without thinking, catching his shirt but losing her own hold. The current took them both. Caleb froze. For one terrible heartbeat, he was back in Cheyenne, watching Rebecca fall, his body refusing to move. Then Clara screamed, "Papa!" Something broke. Caleb shoved Ruth into Clara's arms and dove. The current was stronger than expected, colder. He found Ginny first, clawing at the water, Daniel locked in her arms. Caleb grabbed them both, kicked hard, and fought toward the far bank. They collapsed in the shallows, coughing, shaking. Ginny stared at him, water streaming from her hair, eyes wide with something beyond gratitude. "You came after me," she whispered. Caleb nodded, unable to speak. He'd moved. After 4 years of paralysis, he'd finally moved. That night, sharing body heat around a hidden fire, their hands touched and stayed. Will Caleb and Ginny survive the gang's hunt? Can 2 broken souls build something worth living for? Subscribe to find out what happens when the Kettering gang finally catches up, and whether love can bloom in the shadow of violence. The abandoned farmhouse sat half-collapsed near Greeley, roof sagging, walls weathered gray. But it had 4 walls and a stone fireplace that wouldn't show smoke at night. They slept in shifts. The children dropped into exhausted slumber almost immediately, curled together like puppies. Caleb took first watch, but his shoulder ached where he'd wrenched it pulling Ginny from the river. "Let me see that," Ginny said quietly, appearing beside him with torn fabric for bandaging. Her hands were gentle, efficient. She'd clearly done this before, tended wounds, patched up damage, kept her family alive through Frank's increasingly dangerous life. "How long did you know?" Caleb asked. "About Frank." Ginny's hands stilled. "That he was an outlaw?" "Not until Ruth was born. By then, it was too late to leave." "He threatened you?" "Didn't have to. His partners made it clear. I stayed quiet or my children disappeared." She finished tying the bandage. "I tell myself I stayed for them. But maybe I was just a coward. Cowards don't walk into rivers to save their children." Ginny's eyes glistened. "I froze for 3 years, Mr. Smithson. Watched my husband become someone I didn't recognize and said nothing. That's cowardice." Caleb understood that particular flavor of guilt. He'd been choking on it for 4 years. "Rebecca was her name," he said quietly. "My fiancée. We were in the Cheyenne bank when it got robbed. For men with guns. She was standing next to me when the shooting started." Ginny waited, not pushing. I froze. Just stood there while bullets flew. Watched her fall, reaching for me, and I couldn't move. Couldn't do a damn thing. His voice cracked. "She died calling my name." Ginny's hand found his in the darkness. "You're alive, Caleb. I'm alive." Maybe that's enough to start with. Her fingers were rough from work, warm from the fire. Caleb stared at their joined hands, afraid to move, afraid she'd pull away. She didn't. Outside, wolves howled in the distance. Inside, 2 broken people sat in silence, holding on. The old stage station appeared at dawn, weathered wood and broken windows, abandoned for years. Caleb signaled for silence, but it was already too late. "Holloway," the voice cut through the morning air like a whip. "We know you're there." Caleb's blood went cold. 3 riders emerged from the tree line. Wade Kettering sat tall in the saddle, a cruel smile twisting his face. His brother Curtis flanked him on the left, and a lean man Caleb didn't recognize, probably hired muscle, sat on the right. "Get the children in the cellar," Caleb whispered urgently. "Now!" Clara moved fast, grabbing Ruth and Daniel. Jenny hesitated, eyes wide with terror. "Go," Caleb ordered, checking his rifle. Wade urged his horse forward. "Jenny Rochelle, your dead husband stole from us. $20,000 from the Laramie job. We know Frank hid it somewhere, and you're going to tell us where." "I don't know about any money," Jenny screamed back. Wade laughed, cold and empty. "Frank told Curtis he hid it where his wife would look last. So we're going to search every inch of that land you got. But first, we're going to make sure there's no witnesses." The hired gun, Virgil Ross, drew first. Caleb fired, dropping Virgil from his horse before the man's pistol cleared leather. Curtis spurred forward, shooting wild. A bullet caught Caleb high in the shoulder, spinning him back. Jenny grabbed Frank's old rifle from their supplies. Her hands shook violently, but when Curtis circled toward the cellar door, she fired. The shot went wide, but close enough to make Curtis's horse rear, throwing off his aim. "Run!" Caleb shouted, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "Take the children and run." Wade fired twice more, bullets splintering wood. But the gang was exposed, caught in the open. They wheeled their horses and retreated to the tree line. Caleb knew it was temporary. They'd regroup and come back with reinforcements. "Move," he gasped, blood soaking through his shirt. "We've got maybe 10 minutes. Jenny gathered the children. Daniel helped support Caleb's weight while Clara carried Ruth. They ran south, leaving a trail of blood behind them. The Carlson farm appeared like a mirage. Mrs. Carlson took one look at Caleb's bloody shoulder and the terrified children, crossed herself, and ushered them into the barn. "My husband's in town," she said. "You've got until he gets back. Maybe 3 days." Caleb collapsed in the hay. The bullet had gone clean through, but infection set in fast. By nightfall, fever consumed him. Jenny didn't sleep for 48 hours. She changed bandages, forced water down his throat, pressed cool cloths to his burning forehead. The children huddled in the corner, silent and frightened. "Don't die," Clara whispered. "Please don't die like Papa did." On the second night, Caleb started screaming. He saw Rebecca in the barn doorway, wearing the blue dress she'd died in, blood spreading across the fabric like spilled wine. "You let me die," she said in his own voice. "You just watched." "I'm sorry," Caleb sobbed, "Frashing. I'm so sorry. I froze. I couldn't move." "When do you stop dying with me, Caleb?" Rebecca asked. "When is it enough?" He woke screaming her name. Jenny was there, exhausted but steady, holding his hand. And suddenly he couldn't stop talking, the whole truth pouring out. The paralysis, the guilt, for years of punishing himself by refusing to live. Jenny listened without judgment. When he finished, she spoke quietly. "I knew Frank was slipping away, knew he was making dangerous choices. I said nothing, thinking silence would protect my children." Tears tracked down her face. "We both survived people we loved, Caleb, but ghosts don't bleed. They don't sweat. They don't feel." She pressed his hand to her cheek. "You're alive." "I'm alive." Maybe that's enough. When the fever broke at dawn, Jenny was asleep with her head on his cot, their fingers still intertwined. Caleb looked at her and finally allowed himself to hope. Caleb survived the fever, but the Kettering gang is still hunting them. Will they reach safety, or will the final confrontation destroy everything they're building? Subscribe now. You won't believe what happens when love faces its deadliest test. The telegram arrived 3 days later, delivered by a postal rider passing through. Jenny read it twice, face draining of color. Then she crumpled it in her fist and walked outside. Caleb found her behind the barn, staring at nothing. "What is it?" "My sister. Dead. Cholera took her 3 months ago." Jenny's voice was hollow. "We have nowhere to go." The words hung in the air like smoke. No destination. No plan. No hope. Then we don't go anywhere, Caleb said. Jenny turned, eyes red. What? We use your deed. Claim a land near Fort Collins. Build something. Caleb, the gang will find us. You'll die protecting me and my children. I can't. I'm done running from living. He stepped closer. I spent 4 years dead, Jenny. You brought me back. Not because you needed saving, but because I did. You don't owe me your life. I'm not offering it out of debt. His voice softened. I'm offering it because when I wake up, the first thing I want to see is you. Because Daniel's learning to whistle like I taught him. Because Ruth calls me Papa when she thinks I can't hear. Because I love you. Jenny's breath caught. You can't. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're steel wrapped in calico. I know you die for your children. I know when you smile, it feels like sun after winter. He cupped her face. So we file that claim. We build a cabin. We face whatever comes. Together. Tears spilled down her cheeks. What if I lose you? You won't. I promise. And this time, I keep my promises. They rode into Fort Collins the next day. Sheriff Tom Bradshaw accepted their land claim with skeptical eyes but fair treatment. Word spread fast. The outlaw's widow and the drifter cowboy playing house. Caleb didn't care. He bought lumber and started building. For 3 weeks, they lived in borrowed peace. The children flourished. The cabin took shape. But Caleb kept his rifle loaded. He knew the gang would come. They came at dawn, when the sky was still purple and the world held its breath. Caleb saw them first, 4 riders silhouetted against the rising sun. Wade Kettering, his brother Curtis, and 2 new hired guns. They stopped 50 yards from the half-finished cabin. Jenny Rochelle. Wade's voice shattered the morning peace. Last chance. Tell us where Frank hid the money, or we burn you out with your brats inside. Caleb herded the children toward the root cellar. Clara clutched Ruth. Daniel gripped a kitchen knife with white knuckles. I don't know about any money. Jenny screamed from the window. Frank never told me anything. Wade's laugh was ice. Frank told Curtis he hid it, where his wife would look last. So we're tearing this place apart. But first, we're eliminating witnesses. The shooting started. Caleb took position at the front window, Jenny at the back with Frank's rifle. His shoulders still ached, forcing him to shoot left-handed. The first hired gun went down clean. Jenny's shot caught the second in the leg. Curtis circled toward the root cellar. Ruth's crying gave away their hiding spot. No. Jenny fired twice, missing but driving Curtis back. Wade set fire to the woodpile. Smoke billowed into the cabin, choking, blinding. Curtis made another run for the cellar door. Caleb fired through the smoke. Curtis dropped 10 feet from the entrance. Wade charged in rage, abandoning his horse, gun blazing. Caleb met him at the doorway. They grappled, both wounded, both desperate. Caleb's injured shoulder screamed. Wade's gun clicked empty. Caleb's didn't. The shot echoed across the prairie. Wade Kettering fell and didn't rise. Hoofbeats thundered from the east, Sheriff Bradshaw and 3 deputies, drawn by a neighboring farmer who'd heard gunfire. Curtis Kettering survived, hands raised in surrender. The hired guns didn't. Bradshaw surveyed the carnage, then looked at Caleb. You got Sam Smithson. How do you feel about wearing a deputy's badge? Caleb looked at Jenny, at the children emerging from the cellar, alive. I feel like staying right here, Sheriff. If that's all the same. Bradshaw nodded. Land's yours. Legally and clear. 3 months later, November frost painted the Colorado prairie silver. The cabin stood complete, small but solid, smoke curling from the chimney, curtains in the windows. A garden plot lay ready for spring planting. Cattle grazed in the south pasture, bought with the reward money from the Kettering gang. Caleb Smithson and Jenny Rochelle married on a crisp Saturday morning at the Fort Collins church. Clara stood beside her mother, wearing a new dress, smiling genuinely for the first time anyone could remember. Daniel served as Caleb's best man, chest puffed with pride. Ruth toddled down the aisle dropping wildflowers, calling Papa, Papa, to the congregation's delight. After the ceremony, Caleb turned to Jenny. There's one more journey we need to make. They rode to Cheyenne the next day, to a small cemetery on the edge of town. Jenny stood silent as Caleb knelt at Rebecca's headstone. The wind stirred the prairie grass, carrying the scent of approaching winter. "I came to say goodbye properly," Caleb said quietly. "I loved you, Rebecca. Part of me always will. But I'm choosing to live now. I'm choosing her, and those children, and a life we're building. I think you'd want that for me." The wind seemed to answer, soft and releasing. Jenny took his hand. "Thank you for bringing me here, for letting me see all of you. You're not second choice, Jenny. You're the right choice. The only choice." She kissed him, certain and sweet. On the wagon ride home, they talked about spring planting, about adding rooms for the baby Jenny was carrying, about teaching Daniel to read and sending Clara to the new schoolhouse. As sunset painted the sky gold and crimson, Caleb looked at his wife, his children, his land, life built from ashes and second chances. The past wasn't erased, but it no longer held him prisoner. Some winters break you, he thought. Some winters remake you. This one gave him everything, from desperate strangers to chosen family. Caleb and Jenny's story proves that love can bloom even in the harshest wilderness. Want more stories of redemption, courage, and second chances? Subscribe now and never miss a tale of hearts finding home against all odds.
If you enjoyed this story, we appreciate you a whole lot and look forward to connecting with you as we build a community on this channel. Every day, we will put out more stories, so we need your support. Help us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. You won't miss any new exciting videos. Check out the next video. You'll love it!